Romantic relationships are often complicated. Sure, some relationships are more complicated than others, but by virtue of involving another person, being in a relationship is always going to be harder than being single. Some people, however, find it harder than others, and according to the Zodiac, this is why. Starting with Aries. You're impatient and used to leading, which means that in a relationship you'll always want to be in charge. If your partner isn't capable of keeping up with you, or worse, doesn't want to do it, then you're very likely to end a relationship. You want someone that will be there for you on your terms, but that inflexible attitude leaves very little room for compromise, which is necessary for any relationship to flourish. You're also impulsive and self-absorbed, and often make choices without any regard for your partner's feelings or needs. If you want to be in a good relationship, you need to compromise. Next, we have Taurus. You're very possessive and closed off, which means that in a relationship, you'll attempt to control your partner, but won't open up to them. This can make your partners feel stifled or overwhelmed, which in turn will make them want to pull away, which will make you want to keep them even closer. It's a vicious cycle born from your innate possessiveness, and something you need to learn to control if you're serious about pursuing a relationship. Next, we have Gemini. Your inconsistency may seem quirky at first, but in a serious relationship, it only spells disaster. People don't like being yanked in many directions, and while your opinion changes make sense to you, they don't really make sense to anyone else. It's very difficult to want to stay with someone long term if that someone keeps changing their mind about you and your relationship. Yes, being spontaneous is fun, but at some point, you need to start taking things seriously. Next, we have Cancer. To put it bluntly, you're an emotional mess. Sure, we all have good and bad days, and we all go through situations where our situations overwhelm us, but you tend to take it a little too far, a little too often. There's nothing wrong with staying in touch with our emotions, but reacting to everything like you're the star of a soap opera does get exhausting for someone who surrounds you. In a relationship, there will always be disagreements and petty arguments. And to overcome them, you'll need to keep a cool head and not let your emotions rule you. Next, we have Leo. You'd think that, as confident and self-assured as you are, the last thing you'd have to worry about is jealousy, and yet, it's what's ruining your relationships. You're always obsessing over who your partner is and who they're talking to, and comparing their friends to you even when it's completely unnecessary. It makes sense in a bizarre, self-absorbed way. Since you crave to be the center of attention, your partner turning their attention towards others feels like a betrayal, but that needs to stop. Your partner having a social life outside of your relationship isn't the end of the world. Next, we have Virgo. You're the most judgmental and nitpicky sign in the Zodiac, and no one finds that attractive or even tolerable. While it's true that you do this from a place of caring and that you're even more critical of yourself, but the truth is that no one likes being criticized for every little thing they do. No one enters a relationship to feel judged, and no one can thrive in a relationship where they're made to feel like they're constantly falling short. If you want to stay in a long-term relationship, you're going to have to learn to keep your advice to yourself. Next, we have Libra. You don't have a problem entering or even staying in a relationship. Your problem is that you do it far too quickly and with no selectiveness to speak of. We get it. You like to please others and you always attempt to keep the peace by giving people what they want, which means that you've probably entered a relationship just to keep other people happy more than once. This is a huge issue, and you know it. You need to be more selective and less caring of other people's emotions, at least at first. Just because someone likes you, you're not obligated to like them back. So stop getting into relationships at the drop of a hat. Next, we have Scorpio. While you're passionate and loving, you're also pretty self-absorbed and think nothing of manipulating others to get your way. Yes, this extends to your partner. No one denied that you have feelings for them, but those feelings often come with a heaping dose of manipulation and coercion, which is just wrong. A partner is supposed to be your equal, not your puppet. And while you'll have no problem entering relationships in your life, staying in them is the challenging part. No one wants to be with someone who attempts to control every aspect of their lives. Next, we have Sagittarius. You have the habit of seeing things the way you want to see them rather than the way they really are, and when reality gets in the way of your fantasies, you panic and run. This is why people consider you flighty and think you're afraid of compromise. It's not that you don't want to be in a committed relationship, it's that you've convinced yourself that you're living a fairy tale romance, and when something challenges that expectation, you decide to throw the entire relationship away. No relationship is perfect from day one, and the strongest long-term relationships are as strong as they are because both parties stayed and worked towards solving their problems like grown-ups. By running away at the first sign of trouble, you're only sabotaging yourself. Next, we have Capricorn. When you enter a relationship, you do it thinking about all the ways it could go wrong. This fatalistic attitude dooms the relationship from the very beginning, as you'll attempt to protect yourself throughout the whole thing, shutting out your partners even when they desperately want to be close to you. Because you're already convinced the relationship is going to fail, you don't enjoy nearly as much as you should, and even worse, you don't try to improve it. Your relationships suck because you're convinced they're going to suck, and in turn, suck as a partner. Next, we have Aquarius. You have the horrible habit of starting drama just to see what happens. Sure, it can be fun to stir things up to see how others will react, but you know what's not fun? Being on the receiving end. Relationships are meant to be safe places where you can be yourself without judgment, and more importantly, where you can trust your partner implicitly. If you know your partner is going to start drama just to get a reaction from you, it's very hard to feel safe or even comfortable. No one likes feeling like someone else's plaything, particularly when that someone is your partner. Next, we have Pisces. You're overly sensitive and capable of dramatizing things to a ridiculous degree. Your partners feel like they have to walk on eggshells around you and can never relax enough to simply be themselves. People get into relationships to be with someone that understands them and cares for them as they are. And if your partner is afraid of upsetting you by simply breathing, that's going to put a huge strain on your relationship. You're not always the victim, and not everything that happens in your relationships is done to you.